What if the devil didn't come with horns and fire, but with a smile, charm, and old Southern wisdom?
To Sleep with Anger isn't just a movie. It's a slow-burning descent into chaos, seduction, and the sinister power of an old friend.
When Harry arrives, he doesn't just visit, he infects, manipulates, and threatens to tear a family apart from the inside out.
Is Harry just a man or something even more sinister? Let's dive into this eerie, tension-filled masterpiece and uncover the dark secrets lurking beneath the surface.
I'm Heit.
And I'm Cheri.
And you've discovered Axiom Amnesia.
We want to thank all of the supporters who helped to make this video possible. If you want your name to appear alongside these contributors, make a one-time donation of $5 or more via our website at axiom.app, Cash App, or you can head on over to patreon.com/axiomamnesia to enjoy all of the benefits of becoming a monthly subscriber. The executive producer of this video is Anton Goldwyn, who requested this film through Axiom Amnesia's Deep Dive on Demand program that we'll tell you more about later.
If you haven't seen this film and you don't want any spoilers, you might just want to kick rocks.
Yep, hop off the call. So let's talk about the background of this film, the director and writer. To Sleep with Anger was written and directed by Charles Burnett. He was this highly respected independent filmmaker who's known for his realistic and deeply personal portrayals of Black American life. So this film stars Danny Glover. Danny Glover not only starred as the mysterious and manipulative Harry, but also served as an executive producer. He saw the film as an opportunity to support independent Black cinema and took on the project to help bring Burnett's vision to life. And the film was critically acclaimed. It won multiple awards, including Best Screenplay at the Independent Spirit Awards. And it was also selected for preservation by the Library of Congress in the National Film Registry for its cultural and historical significance. And then the film does talk about these themes of folklore and superstition, and Burnett made sure he infused the film with the elements of Southern folklore and Black spiritual traditions. And I think that was really important in capturing, who Black people really are, because there's this question oftentimes of, we want to see Black characters, but then you see Black faces, but they might not be acting within the culture of Blackness that we are familiar with in this country, right? It also was a low budget film. And despite its low budget, though, it was praised for its rich storytelling and strong performances. So let us talk about the cast. And to give you kind of the idea of the people, so it's just think of a family tree. And you have, a mother and a father and all of that, and then two sons and their wives, who are the main people in this film, plus an old family friend who's played by Danny Glover. So Danny Glover, he plays Harry, who's that family friend. Mary Alice plays Susie, who's the mother of the family. Y'all probably remember her from A Different World. She was also in The Inkwell as the grandmother. She's been in stuff, a whole bunch of stuff she was in throughout the years. Then we have Paul Butler, who plays Gideon, who's the father of the family. And then Carl Lumbly plays Junior, who's Harry and Susie's eldest son. Y'all know Carl Lumbly because he played Ali in
South Central?
Yes. And, I always think about, what is it? Giving is costly? Helping is costly, is one of the best lines he ever spoke. And then we have Richard Brooks, who plays Babe Brother, who is Harry and Susie's youngest son. And then we have Cheryl Lee Ralph, who plays Linda, who is Babe Brother's wife. Vanetta McGee is Pat and plays Junior's wife. And guess who is in here? Raina King, who plays Rhonda. And that she is Junior and Pat's daughter. And Raina King is Regina King's sister. Yes, the Regina King is in this movie. Because when you look at her, you're like, she looks almost just like Regina King at that age. And then we have Ethel Atler, who plays Hattie. She is another family friend. She was the grandmother on Eve's Bayou, and she also played Claire Huxtable's mother on The Cosby Show. So these are, to give y'all touch points as to where you might have seen them. And then we had Devon Nixon, who plays Sonny, is the son of Junior and Pat. And he also was in The Bodyguard as Whitney's character's son, and he was in Sugar Hill as young Ray Nathan. We covered Sugar Hill on one of our channels before, so if you haven't seen that, check out our videos on that.
Want us to cover your favorite movie ASAP? A one-time contribution of just $50 or more to Axiom Amnesia gets you a deep dive on demand, a 30-minute discussion on any film you choose.
It's easy. Step 1, send $50 via our website, axiom.app, where you can pay via card, Apple Pay, or you can pay directly via Cash App at $Axiom Amnesia. See the links below. Step 2, tell us your movie, email, the name you want to appear on screen, and what kind of deep dive you want. General, a specific character, a particular aspect of the film, etc. Step 3, watch your deep dive on demand with your name listed as executive producer.
Lock in your deep dive on demand today and hurry. Spots are limited.
This offer is not valid for filmmakers or distributors. Subject to availability and terms apply. And now we should talk about a summary of the movie. So we have Act 1, which we'll call an unexpected visitor. So Gideon and Susie, who are this older Black couple in the 1980s Los Angeles, they live this quiet and stable life that's rooted in tradition and family. Their world is disrupted when an old friend from the South, Harry, arrives unexpectedly. The charismatic Harry charms his way into their home, bringing with him an unsettling presence. While Gideon and Susie welcome him, not sensing that something is off about their guest, Harry settles in and his influence spreads, subtly stirring up old tensions between Gideon's sons, Junior and Babe Brother, who already struggle with deep-seated resentment and differing values. Before we move on with the rest of the film, I just want to go into more detail about how this actually happens and what's going on with them. So as the film opens up, we see kind of the members of the family. It opens up with burning in the house. Like there's flames on a guy who's just sitting there, not looking like he's on fire. So clearly they're telling us that there's something, you're being consumed. These are flames in this family. The devil
has come to collect.
I know, right? We have this little boy who comes in the room. Mary Alice, the character Susie, is teaching a Lamaze class because she's a midwife. She's teaching that in her home. And her husband was outside with a Bible just sitting out in the yard or whatever. He comes in and he's complaining about, relatives staying with them and whatever. And we're introduced to all of these different characters. And there's a problem right away because the grandparents have the child of their youngest son, right? And they're always babysitting this baby. And they're annoyed by the fact that he's always with them and that they don't take care of their kids. And so we see that Babe Brother, he is highfalutin. He's driving a, expensive car. He's got his pretty wife and all of that. And he's complaining that he comes from a family that's no different than farm animals. And
what does that mean?
I don't know. They just not refined, right? And
yeah. So this, I think it's one of those things. This is LA, right? You have the Great Migration, right? And everybody knows, everybody came to the West and places like Chicago back in the day, Black folks, for a better life and to get out of the South, right? So a lot of people are country folks, right? And then you get people who go to these different places and then, they like, okay, on the East Side.
We moving on up.
Moving on up. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And then you think you're better than the people who you come from, right? So we ain't into that country stuff no more. You know what I'm saying? We in the city, we living high, we driving good.
Yeah.
Right? So those are some of the things that happen when you have, these early stories of, the migrations to the West, right? And people coming out of the South and us attaching that to our worth. And because it's like, okay, this lifestyle gives you more or less worth. Right. So farm animals is basically just you just country to the extreme, I believe, in a sense. Right. You're not very civilized. Right. Because the country and rural areas aren't really considered civilized. It's the civilization comes from the clustering of people and the building of industry and roads and all that stuff. Right. So the more of that, then the more civilized. I think that's the way that most people see it.
Yeah. And in addition to that, Babe Brother's wife, she's complaining to him that their son does need some discipline. And
you can't give it to him.
You know, and he's like, their father was hard on, you know, his father was hard on him and his brother and whatever, like as if he doesn't, the implication is that he doesn't have enough discipline to give it, but he's like, I got discipline, I had discipline and whatever. So
Exhibiting Forgiveness.
That another movie that we covered. And so we find out that the brothers have forgotten their mother, Susie, her birthday. And so, but babe brother is like a slick talker, you know, and he lies and he's like, well, you know, I had ordered some cloth and it just has not arrived at this given time. And
right.
And his daddy know he BS.
Yeah, the daddy like, so what about your wife? What she got him? What she got her? Bruh.
But meanwhile, his wife is not even coming in. Like they're having dinner or a meal, you know, or whatever. And his wife is not even coming in the house. And she's sitting in the car and the daddy is like, go out there and tell your wife to come inside. And so in the meantime, they continue to talk. And Junior, who's the older of the brothers, he says, y'all should have been harder on babe brother like y'all were on me. And then Mary Alice's character, Susie, the mother, she says that she breastfed both of them the same. So she's like, you were treated the same. And y'all know her voice is very calm and very serene. And she said, you know, I treated you the same. I did the same. And so here we see what this lay of the land is. We got these two brothers who are at each other. They don't feel that they were treated equally. You got babe brother who feels like he's disrespected and treated like a baby. And then you got the older brother who is like, y'all wasn't hard on him like y'all was on me, because if you was, maybe he would have turned out better, right? Danny Glover arrives at the door. And
Danny Glover is Harry.
Yes. And they haven't seen him in 30 years, they say. And he said that he was just taking a bus across country and he had to stop and take a rest in LA.
Bruh.
And then they invite him.
That's the end of the country.
They invite him to stay as long as he likes. First off, this is not what that means, old school hospitality.
No, that's not what it means. Stay as long as you like, and then you gone in a day or two, right?
Well, what it means is you say that it is the lie that you tell, but you don't really mean that they should say.
Make
you don't
yourself
want them
at home. Don't mean make yourself at home.
Don't mean come live with me and start moving my stuff
don't mean
around.
exactly. Don't make yourself at home.
Yes. So then Harry is like, okay, because he know they're going to give him hospitality. But think about this, y'all. Somebody you haven't known yet. Some of y'all ain't even 30 years old. But imagine somebody you haven't seen in a lifetime. 30 years is at your door. You're not expecting them and they just showing up and then you just like, come on in.
You know how much people can change in 30 years? I didn't know that till I got older.
Listen. Okay. And so, but then Harry comes in and I felt like Harry was a little rude. So Harry, but you interpreted it differently. So we got to talk about this. So Harry comes in and he's like, he telling him I don't sleep on no spring mattresses.
Yeah.
Always make me a pallet. You know, and I was like, wait, what, bro? So you got demands. You just here like giving you.
That's a lesser accommodation.
But I got to move the bed over, and what I got in this room
ain't gotta
to
move
make
the bed
you a pallet
over.
on the floor.
He's just like I need.
Why you telling me make your own pallet?
Well, because you have to get the things. You're the host. You got to get the blanket and stuff, whatever, to make the pallet. So he's telling them, I'm not going to be a burden on you, you know? What?
The devil always come in smiling.
So you don't know. So to me, you know, it's when this happens and all is, you know, they meet the family, he meets the family and stuff. It's kind of like, I know something going on here. Is he an angel or is he a demon? And that's just, I don't know. I just got this feeling.
You got a feeling.
Yeah.
We talked about that in another video about people having a feeling, and we covered death by temptation. And that, you know, we discussed that whole I got a feeling thing in there. So as they're talking about, you know, when Harry comes in and he's there, Susie says something I thought was interesting. She said back in the day, because her and Harry are talking about how things were back home, where they came from and how back in the day stuff was better, essentially. And she said in those days, you could always find something redeeming even in the worst person. So that tells you right there that her character is like forgiving. She's maybe even a little naive. She's, you know, she's just like, I'm a good and decent woman, right?
But is she telling us that Harry is bad?
Or is she telling Harry to his face he's bad? I don't know. Everything is very ambiguous in this movie, you know. And so then they talk about how back home you had to know your manners and know your place, and how different people are now. And so they decide to go to church. They invite Harry to church. Harry don't want to go to no church. So then Harry starts looking through all of their stuff, snooping and reading letters while they're gone to church. Bruh.
Yeah.
So then we find out that Babe brother is this loan officer and his wife is in real estate. So, that's how they got this money. They're doing good. Yeah. But they got their butt on their back. Okay.
Bruh.
And they think they're better than their family. And this is an issue that we see all the time in these movies. Y'all probably see it in real life too, where, you come from humble or more humble beginnings. They ain't that humble because they own their own house. And you know what I mean? They're fine. They're decent, middle class upbringing or whatever, but they're not driving the BMW or a Benz or something. But they're living fine. But Babe brother, he got to drive the BMW. I think it was he was driving, and he's got to be fancy, and his wife got to be fancy, and all this. So he's trying to portray an image that is different, and he's embarrassed by his family not being.
I wish I knew that Tyler Perry line, and I make $25 an hour or whatever it was.
But Harry goes on to tell you a little bit more about himself as he's talking to people and stuff. And he says he doesn't believe in sin, but he does believe in good and evil, and that evil is something you have to work at. So to me, the way I interpret that is that a person isn't just evil like because they just doing things. Like you got to try to be evil versus the idea of like you're just evil,
right,
as a baseline state.
He was very naive, maybe. Right? It's that you don't know. You thinking this, right? And you sitting here evil.
And then he talks about like his superstition though, so he is a superstitious person, right? He talks of using a rabbit's foot for good luck, and that the rabbit's foot replaced what he calls his Toby, right? Which he says is this good luck charm. He lost it, and he's been looking over his shoulder ever since he lost his good luck charm. So he is very superstitious. Y'all go to the comments. Have y'all ever heard of a Toby? What do y'all know about it? Do y'all carry good luck charms? Well, just talk to us about that. Some of your older family members, did they used to carry good luck charms? So Babe brother's wife brags about having her baby at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. And this
I
is
had my
what
baby
happened.
at Cedars-Sinai.
So mind you, now we got to put this in context. Her mother-in-law is a midwife who delivers babies at home, because we actually see her deliver a baby in the movie. She delivers babies at home, and Harry is stirring up mess, and Harry's like, so did you have your baby at home? And she said, oh no, I had my baby at Cedars-Sinai Hospital, which ain't no county hospital.
The changing of the times too, right? So you got these old ideas of medicine, then you got the new thing, right? That's this contrast between quote the South, and then you got civilization, right? Where, you're supposed to be better because, a hospital is much better than the more natural types of births.
Yeah, and the home births that were happening for a number of different reasons. One, because people were having babies at home for a long time, and two, because of disparities in available health care for women. Even once people started having babies in hospitals, everybody didn't have the means to be able to do so. Also, as seen here, or the inclination, right? Because the mother was a midwife. She's delivering babies in the home. One of my closest friends is a midwife who does home births. So, there are people who still do that today. So it's not completely outdated. But then,
but it's just sort of like, I think it is completely outdated, because it's just like people don't grow their own food either, right? But there are people who do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we look at these certain things as old fashioned and stuff. And I think that's what the movie is showing us, right? Especially at this nice, good early time of 1990, right? Which
changing
was
of the times.
35. Yeah, the changing of the times, where now we're getting corralled. We're losing all those skills and stuff that we had before.
Yep.
Because it's old fashioned.
And we find out more about who Babe brother's wife is, because she then says that the other brother, Junior, the Junior's wife, who is now pregnant, kept her after birth in the refrigerator. And she said, that's why I don't
know about that.
She said, that's why I don't eat nothing out of there.
Yeah, y'all need to find a different freezer for that.
Yes.
I had a freezer for my bait to go fishing and stuff.
Yeah. because even that, you don't want that mingling with your,
exactly. You got the afterbirth up in there. Just let me know so I can know not to eat over there.
Shut
You might make a mistake and put it up in there in the gumbo or something.
We also find out that Harry carries a knife. I was thinking, okay, I'm silly. Heit Cheri, right? Y'all know what Heit Cheri is like when you off yourself. That's like a way of saying you offed yourself.
I never heard of that before.
Okay, we must stop for a minute.
Wait, what? You mean the guy?
It's not the guy Heit Cheri, which for a long time I used to think it was, but it's HARIKARI, Heit Cheri. It was ritual offing yourself by disembowelment that was practiced by Japanese samurais or formerly decreed by a court in lieu of the death penalty. So they called it committing Heit Cheri. So it's like, it's a ritual. And then I think that they would be doing it like as a means of honor, or, kind of how you would hear the samurai would take themselves out.
How do you even do that?
I don't really know. I don't want to know. But some people casually just use it to mean that you, offed yourself. So when I read Harry carries a knife and he always protects himself, because that was what I had in my notes, right? So he's showing this knife. Well, Harry carries, so, and then you know what that means now, a knife. Because I'm looking at the words Harry, the name, carries, as in carrying something. Yeah. And it's not the same, but anyway, y'all. So, but he says he always protects himself. So he's got this like switchblade or whatever. And he talks to Junior's wife about her volunteer work. He's like, I hear you feeding the poor and whatever. And
yet the problem grows. That boy was spitting up in this movie, though.
He said, and he's like, you and your husband are special. Imagine my voice as Danny Glover, because you know how he talks. You and your husband are special. So Harry says to them, though, he said, you ever see a man jump in to save 500 drowning people? And he says, when you spread help too thin, you just nickel and dime, and you just nickel and dime the situation. Yeah. Medicine that works leaves a bitter taste. If you try to help all, they all die. But if you save one life, life goes on.
Yeah. He said, take just one and fatten them up.
Yes. And like, he's dropping gems throughout this movie, but then he's saying these things. I'm confused. You're confusing me.
This dude ain't do nothing bad the whole movie, though, to be real.
Listen, we gonna see. Y'all gonna go to the comments to tell us if y'all think he did something bad. Okay. All right. So then the next thing that goes on, so he's basically telling them, he's like, all right, he sets it up. He's like, you doing all this good and you thinking good of yourself, because this is the subtext of what's going on. Yes, I volunteer and I do all of this work, right? He's like, but you doing all this, and I guess that's a good thing. He's like, but if you just save one person, then and life goes on. So then Harry goes out and he starts talking to her husband, who is Junior. Right. And Junior is out there complaining, my lazy brother should have did this, because they asked Babe brother to fix the roof. And now Junior is out there fixing the roof because Babe brother don't never do what people ask him to do. The first thing he's complaining about is how lazy his brother is. He's like, my brother's supposed to help me and whatever, and he ain't here to help me. So Harry's like, I can help you. And then, but he also says to him, you can't judge others based on how you act.
Her?
He says it to, yes. So Harry says to Junior, you can't judge others based on how you act.
Yeah.
I said, ooh, that's a word, though, because that's what we all naturally sort of want to do. I did this and I do this because this is the right and good thing to do in my mind. This is my judgment, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody else doesn't do the same thing and I look at them sideways. Right? So another gem he dropped up in here.
But maybe they can't do it. Right? You have different things. Yeah.
So then Harry goes on to say the people who run to help the victim are attracted to pain and suffering. They love to be near to dying, but you can never tell what's in their heart. And I'm like, man, that just brings you back to the whole debate, this question of intention. Is doing the right thing right because, do you get points? Let's just call it that. Do you get credit for doing the right thing for the wrong reasons? Maybe I'm serving my ego by volunteering and doing all these things that are good and helpful, maybe, but that are definitely perceived as being good. But if my motive is just to pump myself up, or I just want to use that, or I get people ensnared so that I can manipulate them, you know what I did for you, right? Because that's something that a lot of people use in social media, and they're commenting about how this family don't do nothing for me if you're going to throw it in my face. And, so this is a dynamic that is a human one that is just being discussed. Like Harry is just going to each person, talking to them individually, planting seeds and, what have you. What you think about that, though? The people that run to help the victim are attracted to pain and suffering. I never thought of it that way.
I don't know. It's kind of like when you into watching the news, right? And you just like, all right. And the people right now who just watch Trump, and every bad thing and just keep consuming it, right? When you watch the news and stuff like that, you create these connections in your brain, and then you somewhat become addicted to that, right? Mm-hmm. So no matter what it is you do, once you get into it, right? Like even the rush of EMTs and people like that, and maybe ER doctors and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. These rush, because it doesn't matter if the situation is good or bad. It's just that thing is the one that attracts you, right? So it just happens to be, let's say, something, death or pain and suffering, right? Mm-hmm. And it could be for good reasons too, right? Because there's some people, I see problems, I go to solve problems. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just addicted to solving problems.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily bad that they're attracted to that. And there's some people who like, I'm trying to avoid it at all costs.
Yep.
Recent changes here on this platform are making it harder for you to see our latest videos and get notifications. To make sure you don't miss out on anything, we're building our own community, both on our website, axiom.app, and on Patreon, with free and paid options available.
Here's the deal. While you can still watch our videos on YouTube, much of our current catalog and many of our upcoming videos will become unlisted and only accessible to our Patreon, axiom.app, and YouTube channel members. We'll be posting links to these unlisted videos directly on Patreon and axiom.app, so you'll be the first to see them, if you're a member.
If you choose the free Patreon option, you'll still get access to some exclusive content like watch parties, where we watch movies together and give the commentary, and other special videos. But premium paid members will get full access to all of our exclusive content. No new account is needed to join our Patreon. Just log in with your existing social media account.
While some of you may find this announcement disappointing, don't worry. We have no plans to leave YouTube at this point, but you guys are our cousins and our tribe, and we refuse to let platform changes tear us apart. So help us stay connected. Join us on Patreon today at patreon.com/axiomamnesia. You can check the links down below or in the comments. So then next we see Hattie show up. Hattie is an old friend back from where Harry and Susie
all these
and
people
Gideon,
showing up.
all of them.
Yeah, I
know
her?
He just attracted them all there. But so Hattie shows up, and that's
with her butt on her back.
She kind of does, but she don't like Harry. And when Harry sees her, he's like, starts having these philosophical conversations with her, and but she says to him, "Harry, you remind me of so much that went wrong in my life." Like that. What an insult that is.
Is it?
She meant it
it as an insult, but just the idea is like, it's this whole thing. We're running from the South, right? And you are a memory of those times that I'm trying to get away from too.
That's true.
But what did he say to her?
Well, then he goes on in that conversation. He's talking about how I don't have any enemies because I don't live in the past. Bruh. And she just goes in on him. She like, you ain't worth the salt you put in greens. And basically, empty bell clang the loudest or something.
Yeah.
Some other idiom or something that she says that's just to insult him. And so,
but didn't he say something to insult her?
Yeah. Well, he says, well, so here's the background. Susie used to be a singer and a dancer, maybe at a juke joint or somewhere back home or whatever, but she's saved now. Yeah. And so then he's like, why close the barn when the horse is gone? And Susie gets mad. Listen.
So was that before or after all of that other exchange? Right?
It was before. It was before.
So he started it basically.
He did start it. Okay. He did. So, and so, that definitely got her upset. And so then she starts insulting him back.
And it was because he wanted her to sing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just like, look, do what you always did. Now you don't sing because you're saved, kind of thing. And but this idea, why close the barn when the horse is gone? Like, dang. So what you had that was of value in the barn that was being protected by the barn, you already done gave away. So why you gonna lock it up now that it ain't worth nothing? That's basically what he was saying to her, which is, whoa, and to say that to a woman, that's kind of foul. And so Harry, though, is speaking these gems of wisdom, but he's mean with it a little bit, and it sows division in people, right? So Harry decides, okay, well, let's do a fish fry. How you come from out of town, but you ain't got no money you putting in on nothing, but you start talking about we need to throw a party.
See, we don't even know that.
Harry ain't putting no money on that party.
Go to the comments.
Did Harry put some money on this party? He didn't.
But just to come up with it is to obligate somebody. It's like, let's do a fish fry. And like, wait, what? Huh, bro?
Harry gets them to throw the party. And then all of these old friends start showing up at the party. And then they done brought some corn liquor to the party that they had been talking about in various stories or whatever. Harry was trying to get Hattie to sing a song, like before, because Hattie was a singer and a dancer, but she's saved now. So she's like, no, I'm saved. And eventually you look up later and she's over there singing her song. But a man who I think is Hattie's husband, he corners Harry in the kitchen and start talking to him and then asking him about how did the McLaren boys die? Or no, how did Miss Clara's boys die? And then somebody else too, he starts bringing up and everything. So this starts bringing up questions in the mind of the viewer, like, okay, was Harry offing people? And then they, had this whole conversation about just the circumstances of these deaths being suspicious and whatever. And then Harry's response about people, in these circumstances, he says, well, it might have cleared the water. Sometimes a right action comes for the wrong reasons. So now that's back to what we were talking about before, doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. Although in his mind, I think the right thing is on his ear, because if you're saying the right thing is somebody gets offed, but it's for the wrong reasons, I don't know.
Yeah, well, we could probably think of a lot of people right now who we just be better off with if they weren't here, right? But the thing is that maybe something happened to them and it's not for that reason, right? So I kind of understand that, right? So like it's like with let's say R. Kelly, right? He go to jail for some stuff, but we really want him to go to jail for some other stuff that he done many years ago.
Right.
So let's make sure it happens in some other way. And like people didn't care what happened to OJ when he was trying to get his stuff back.
Right. Or Al Capone, right?
Because he got off
tax evasion instead
of the stuff that they actually did.
So Harry, continues to talk with the man, and he acts like the man acts like he knows that Harry has done dirty deeds, but Harry is just like not even bothered. Then baby brother is confronted by his parents because they mad because he always leaving their son with the grandparents to care for all the time. And then they compare him to his brother Junior, and they like, Junior always spend his time with his son. So even the parents are kind of contributing to this problem between the sons, Babe brother.
Well, it's just like, hey, you got a good example and you're not following your example. So
Babe brother says he doesn't need to be reminded that Big Mama was born in slavery, and he asked why they always picking on him, and he said, if you love me, you gonna show me how to make that money. That is literally what he says to his parents in response to them confronting him about not taking care of his child. And by not taking care, I mean obviously the child is clothed and fed and living in a nice house, but he's not spending quality time with his child. And so Susie insists that the father and the son shake hands and just don't carry this any further, just stop. And Harry then takes next day or whatever, takes Gideon, that's the daddy of the family. He takes Gideon for a long walk, and then Gideon turned up sick the next day.
Yeah.
Real sick, and, and then the mother asks Harry to look after, the mother Susie asks Harry to look after Gideon while she's gone to deliver this baby. And then Harry, you see him standing next to the bed looking at Gideon's medications. And so with Susie, being a midwife, she delivers the baby and she returns home. It's like day done broke. It's early in the morning. And Gideon is so sick that his sons have to carry him out to get him to the hospital. They didn't call no ambulance. They like physically carried him out the house and then drove him to the hospital. And the doctor tells them, hey, he's going to be better off at home. So then they bring him back to the house. Harry is still in the house, just making himself super comfortable when they're not there. And then they bring Gideon and sit him on the couch. Gideon's head is bobbed back, like just leaned all back. He's barely conscious and can't talk or anything during this time. And Harry's like, I thought you had crossed the river. Like, bruh, is this what you say to somebody?
Yeah. Hey, you're not dead.
I thought you was dead.
I'm still alive. I'm still alive.
And meanwhile, right in front of Gideon, who is practically passed out, Harry is sitting there and he starts what I feel like was flirting with Susie and taking control of the younger son, babe brother, while
How
Gideon
can he do both?
Well, he does both in that scene. So he's just like, looking like he's trying to slide into the husband role, right? And you talking to the son, you sliding in. And then
that's not what he was doing.
He's being a leader because he sees that
I'm Harry's attorney, y'all.
He sees that nobody is on the side of babe brother. So he knows he can manipulate babe brother by being kind to him because he doesn't, a kind
that's not
mentor type of
manipulation.
figure. He can't.
Why are you questioning this guy's motive?
Well, because they making it add
being
up.
kind to people.
He wasn't.
It's not adding up.
So then Harry is sitting with these two old men who also came from back home. This is after that other scene. They discuss whether Gideon is going to survive. Okay. And Harry responds with, I came up on a valley of hills and the serpent said, make this your home. I meant to look that up. Okay, listen. Harry is saying all kind of stuff. And did Harry actually did he do something with his medications? Did he make the guy sick? I don't know.
We seen what happened throughout the entire movie. So you want me to explain Harry?
Then after that, Harry is running a mojo on a chicken before he try to kill some of the chickens from the yard because they're going to eat good. So he does that where he try to, draws the line in front of the chicken to make it be still, but then the chicken gets away. And then next thing you know, the pastor comes. And he's at the door with the church members. We done came to pray over Gideon. Okay. So Susie let them go to the room and pray over Gideon. And the pastor and the church members are all around while they're about to pray. And they lift up where his feet are. And they like questioning her herbal remedies. And the pastor was like, well, I would have thought you would have depended on prayer. Because, she got some herbs around him. She like, well, I gave him this and that and such to break his fever, right? They don't want to hear that. Meanwhile, Harry is showing babe brother the kind of attention that he's been wanting, this non-judgmental kind of fatherly attention. And he's showing him how to make money playing cards. Meanwhile, you got Junior and his wife, and they're basically talking about how Harry is leeching off their parents, And then babe brother yells at his wife for their son having his shoes on the wrong feet. Now, mind you, this is all in front of Harry, who is there teaching him cards and whatever. And so he snaps on his wife and he winds up inadvertently, perhaps accidentally in the process of whatever happens next. He winds up hitting her in the eye in front of their son.
Bruh, she had a black eye.
And she got a black eye.
Bruh.
And so then you see her serving a meal once they get back to the parents' house. She's serving food with a black eye, and these men are all sitting there laughing, ha, 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 and you remember when? And she is looking devastated, and then she literally begins to cry as she is serving the food, and ain't nobody noticed a daggum thing.
Because that's what women do. They just serve the food.
But apparently in this household, so crazy. So babe brother's wife goes to Junior and his wife to get help because she's done left him. And they're like, well, what's going on? And don't you know not to talk bad about this boy's father in front of him? Da, da, da. Then she pulled off her sunglasses and showed that black eye she got.
I should have seen it already.
Mm-hmm. But it was behind those glasses. And so meanwhile, babe brother is out in the woods with Harry. Now, this is the same thing. Last time Gideon took a walk with Harry, and now babe brother is out there taking a walk with Harry. Is he going to be sick too? So
Yes.
And then he tells him, he say, don't slip on the rocks. They walking on
Yeah.
a creek with slick rocks. He like, don't slip now. I'm like, man, is he going to wind up off in the woods somewhere? But Babe brother says that he hears his son calling him and he rushes away. Now, mind you, his son wasn't calling the name.
He was all feeling all lightheaded and stuff, right? So, yeah.
He's sick too. And, his father had a vision of the past on the walk that he had with Harry. And now he getting lightheaded and dizzy from hanging around Harry. So Babe brother's wife does tell his brother and his wife that the black eye was unintentional. So meanwhile, Harry done took over care for Gideon, who gets agitated as soon as Harry comes in the room. Because Gideon ain't even talking. But
no, that's not how it was. He wasn't agitated.
Where was he?
He just started moving. He was trying to talk to his homie.
Okay.
He got excited.
He got excited because the man who put him in that condition came in and talked about, go take your rest. I got him from here.
Yeah. See, he was helping and stuff, right? He wasn't freeloading or nothing. He's helping out around there. He's helping Babe. He's over there sitting with the father, Gideon and stuff. He's helping to slaughter the chickens.
Then an old man comes and he say, hey, I'm lodge brothers with Gideon, and it is the policy that we take care of the wives. This is him talking to Susie, right? And Gideon is real sick. He say, we always like the widow to marry from within the lodge. And she's just looking at him. And he said, he said, consider this a conditional proposal to be first in line because the other men will be coming.
Who's really bad here?
Listen, everybody.
Not
so he
Harry.
trying to get his
position. Bruh, yeah, that's crazy.
So,
he ain't dead yet, but he like, but when he die, I'm right here.
I'm here. Just remember
next.
me. Know that I put my bid in. And so Babe brother then shows up at Junior's house and the window is up and he's dazed and he won't roll down the window because remember Junior's house is where his wife is right now with their son. And so Harry always shows his good side, but just like the moon, the other side is black. That's what Hattie tells Susie. She's warning Susie, just like in Death by Temptation. Somebody is coming. There's always somebody who they make to seem crazy who is warning the person about what they got near them, the evil that they got going near them. And then she says, you can't keep a wild animal around children. So Hattie is calling Harry like a wild animal. And then she tells him everybody associated with Harry ends up with pennies over their eyes. That means dead. Okay. And she tells Susie, you got to get rid of Harry. Harry is eavesdropping while all this is going on. And Hattie tells Susie to just look at when all of this started. When did Gideon get sick? When did y'all trouble start? Right. And then you're going to know the answer. So Harry come in and he's talking to Susie and he like, I never did nothing to Hattie. I don't know why she act like this. Since she repented, all she does is throw stones. So again, who should we believe?
Harry.
You team Harry. Then Harry makes a statement about himself and he says, when you made to feel like half a man, what do you think the other half is? Because, and I think this is in reference to Hattie calling him an animal, a wild animal. And him overhearing that in that conversation. And so, of course, that's just a rhetorical question that never gets answered. So the mother said, look, I got to know who is in my house. And Harry said, you invited me. And she said, only if you are a good man, a friend. Are you a friend, Harry?
Yes.
Harry don't say yes. Harry gives the example of the boy playing the horn next door. Because earlier in the film, there's this boy who can't play this horn. And he's like sounding terrible on his trumpet. And Harry says if he was a friend, he would stop practicing because it irritates people. But if he stops practicing, he will never be perfect at what he does someday.
And he'll never be good enough to play good music for everybody.
So she said, okay, I hear you. Okay, forget your analogy. She tell Harry, I want you to leave. He said, I'll come back later that night to get my things or whatever. And so Harry asked one of his boys' pictures. He gives a picture to her and say, put them on the mantle with the other pictures, you know. And Harry seems like he's leaving in peace. So then Harry is with these other older guys that are his friends that have kind of crowded around, and Babe Brother. And he's encouraging Babe Brother to leave with him, to go back home to the South where they came from. And he says they're going to have a good time. And in the background, they've got this song playing that is this Bobby Blue Bland song that is playing, and we're gonna talk more about that in detail, but like some of the lyrics is I hear you plotting on me. Okay, there's a reason they put that in there.
Yeah, because they was plotting on Harry.
You should they plotting on Harry. Then Harry goes on to say, and see, this is where Harry goes on to say, you should never treat a woman as an equal. You want your wife back, then get another woman. You ever heard a real man who has one woman, he says, and laugh, chuckling and looking around at the other men in the room, and they like, nah, you know. And so Babe Brother seems to agree.
He was just upset. I don't know what that was. I don't agree with that one.
Babe Brother seems to agree. You ain't Team Harry so hard no more, is you? See, Babe Brother seems to agree, but he say, I got to go by the house first, you know. So Harry gives him this knife, right, this switchblade or whatever, and it's storming outside, and he gets to his parents' house. I'm talking about Babe Brother's at his parents' house, and I'm just like, why is Harry gathering all these old men to leave with him, though? But Babe Brother announces to his mother, hey, I'm leaving with Harry. And she asks if he's thinking about the help she needs with his sick father, about his wife and his child. And then she just go, you know what? All right, you got to see for yourself that you are in the wrong direction. Listen, you got to find out. You don't believe fat meat is greasy. Do what you going to do. So the mother, Susie, calls up Junior to come fix the roof because the roof is leaking up over the bed where Gideon is laying, and he, you know, is sick and whatever. And you can't have the roof leaking on him like that. So Junior and his wife come over to help the mother move the bed because the bed is all heavy. And Junior is mad, and he's like, well, why you didn't ask Babe Brother to help you? And then he goes to confront Babe Brother, and then him and Babe Brother get into this fight. And they're saying, you know, he's like, every time somebody asks you to do something, you say, tell Junior to do it. And Junior is mad, and he calls him boy. And when he calls his brother boy, Babe Brother really doesn't like that. And then that's when they just totally go to blows. And we find out Babe Brother's real name is Samuel. And, you know, he's like, don't call me that. My name is Sam. And then they begin to fight. And then the women come to intervene. And Junior has the knife to Babe Brother's throat. And then the mother is trying to intervene and get between them. And she winds up slicing her hand or getting cut in the process of trying to break them up. And then they take her to the hospital to get treated, and Babe Brother refuses medical treatment and whatever. And then the brothers seem to be talking and making up in the waiting room, and the mother, Susie, is happy about this because she don't want to see her sons fighting each other. And so the plants in the mother's garden, the next morning when they get ready to return home, it's daylight. The plants, everything in the garden is dead.
Dang.
And who on the porch? Harry, when they return in the morning. And Harry's like,
he went to get his things.
Harry comes and he's talking about, I can't believe what I heard happen. Harry, shut up and get your stuff and get the heck out of here.
No, man.
They don't want Harry there, and he just came to get his things, he says. So Babe was going to confront Harry, Babe Brother was, but his wife intervenes, and she's just like, nah, you know, and makes him not confront Harry. So now Babe Brother has got his wits about him and everything. So then when they all entered the home, because the only people at the hospital was Junior, Babe Brother, and the mother. The women were all back with the children at the house. So when they came home, they're like, oh, okay, they're back. And the youngest brother, who is Babe Brother's son, the youngest child, was playing with some marbles on the floor in the kitchen. And when he hears things, then he left his marbles on the floor. The mother is running to the living room. And so the marbles spill out all over the kitchen floor. So then everybody is looking over here at Harry, who is sitting there. I thought you just came for your stuff. He's sitting there with a whole cup of coffee, sitting, sipping. That don't look like packing to me, player. And so then Harry decides to get up and go in the kitchen, and he slips on some marbles that was in the floor. And so essentially what happens is Harry had this heart attack, and they all stand and they watch Harry die after the heart attack. And because he slipped on these marbles. And the paramedics say since they found him dead, they ain't gonna take the body.
You got to wait for the coroner, medical examiner, somebody to come pick
what?
him up, and then here come Gideon walking downstairs.
Gideon done woke up. He done totally woke up, and he like, what? And then so he's been out for almost 3 weeks. He been sick. And then they all sit around with Harry's body on the floor, and they start eating fried chicken. While Harry is laid out, they just carry on. They did put a cover over him and stuff like that. Gideon don't know what's going on. Gideon eating fried chicken or ready to, and he like, who is that? They like, that's Harry. And they like, what happened? And so then they know Gideon notices his wife's hand is bandaged up. He like, what the happened while I was asleep? And then he tells his sons, I hope you take better care of your mother after I'm gone, like gone for real, because y'all didn't do a good job this time. And Babe Brother said it was like he was in hell and he couldn't believe everything he was doing. Right. So he's reflecting on like maybe those visions he was having and stuff when he was hanging around Harry, and how he began to act influenced by Harry. Yeah. And then his wife is like, gets ready to call him Babe Brother, but she calls him Samuel.
Aww.
And what now? Not so. Then Gideon asks, "Hey, you know, when y'all boys gonna fix this roof?" And then Gideon just goes back to like regular life because he didn't really endure all of the worst, because he was unconscious or whatever. And he started telling a joke about a man who decided he gonna check out heaven and hell himself and whatever. And Susie is like, I don't want to hear any talk about colored people being in hell. Mm-hmm. And then an earthquake shakes the house. And Harry is still dead and in the kitchen when this occurs.
That's when his soul left.
And a neighbor made food in her backyard and said, hey, all y'all come on over, eat this food we done made. And then suddenly the boy can play the horn now.
He couldn't play the horn. And it leads
into the credit of
I thought the boy who was playing the trumpet would get good eventually because he's playing through this whole movie and he don't. Man. Until it transitions into the actual song of a real musician playing the trumpet.
So that is what happens in the film. Yeah. And
so Harry, he was cool. Nothing was wrong. He was just kind of cursed. He didn't kill the McClare boys?
Miss Clara.
Miss Clara's boys. He didn't do that. He was just around when Harry gave the black eye, right? He went into the woods. Well, not when Harry got the black eye. You know, Harry was around when Babe gave the black
wife, got the black eye.
And then, so he was just in the woods and he started to feel woozy because he was just around Harry too much, right? That's the same thing that happened to Gideon, which got him sick, right? Mm-hmm. Harry ain't intentionally doing this to people.
Okay, so we're going to talk further about that in just a quick second. But the first question that I want to ask people is, what would you have done if you were in this family's position? Harry done came to the door and everything. How would you have handled him? Would you have acted differently than Gideon and his family, or then especially Susie since she was awake? What would you have done?
What you mean?
Would you have let Harry stay up in the crib?
Well, I don't know. It depends if he had somewhere to go, but probably. But
you would have asked me, hey, do you want Harry to stay? Or you
yes, the movie is about being good or bad, your morals and stuff. Somebody come up and you just be like, no, you can't come. Bam.
I wouldn't say no, you can't come, but I would be like a little salty because where you been for 30 years? You couldn't call it wasn't a payphone. How did you find my house? You know, I got questions for
everybody from where they from was in LA. So you probably seen somebody, they over there.
Go by the house.
They
gonna be there.
Yup, it's that blue house over there.
If it's a blue car in front, then you know they're home. No. So here's the next question I have. Was Babe Brother wrong for being upset at how he was treated? Because he was a fast talker. His reputation was one of like he was always BSing and shirking his responsibilities. And this is why his family really didn't trust him as a leader.
Yeah, but was he treated bad? He wasn't treated bad.
But, well, he felt he was, right? That's how he felt. And, you know, so was he wrong for acting like the tortured youngest child?
Of course, because you ain't treated bad.
Yeah.
And you beat your wife.
Man, look, it was inadvertent, he says. And she said, so, and then now we just got to talk about Harry. Who is Harry? You suggested when we watched this that maybe Harry is like a chi vampire.
Yeah, I would never say chi vampire.
But that was the
chi vamp is what I said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And if you don't know, chi, it's just like, you know, the energy that flow through you, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why Gideon couldn't move or anything, because he needed to be around good people so that he could survive. right? So he went around these people and, he was sucking their energy away. Right? So you go off in the woods with somebody and then they get all woozy and stuff and having visions and stuff, right? Near death experiences and shit.
Well, I think the easy, because the first thought, the low level thought to me was Harry the devil? Like that's the easy answer, is to suggest that he was the devil. But here's another thought, and it occurred to me later after watching this: was Harry evil or was he cursed? And if he was cursed, it points to what you said, which is that he was not intentionally doing things. But if he had a curse upon him, if he was, then
they said everywhere he go, people die.
Yes.
Right?
So in other words, he was like a bad omen, but was he truly evil? Or did he just,
right. So all those things that you talked about, which made it seem like he was a bad person, it wasn't the case, right? That's the misdirection for the movie, right?
Yes.
He was just a good person who was helping around at the house and stuff. And he wasn't doing anything nefarious, I don't think.
Okay, can I say though that there's the point where I say, doesn't matter if he was deliberately doing anything nefarious. If the outcome is people who are around him a long time die, do you want to be around him or somebody like Harry?
Do I want to be around him?
Are you like,
don't,
no, I don't,
Yeah, but
I'll be like, man, Harry, you a nice fella, but listen, I'm going to need you to go ahead. Listen, I done paid for this hotel room for about a week. That should give you plenty of time to rest. Bruh. Come on by for a meal. But other than that, get on that bus and go on back to,
But they never prayed for him.
What do y'all think about that? So,
they went in, they prayed over Gideon and all that, and you got the devil downstairs.
Yes. And then how you walk past the devil if he was the devil, right? Y'all, the church
you walk
people
right on past
coming in
him.
to pray, and you walking past the devil sitting right there and can't recognize it and everything like that. So do we think that Harry is just like purely an agent of chaos, or does he serve as this force? Is he forcing the family to confront their past, or both, right? I mean, I think he's forcing them to look at themselves differently. And we'll get into some speculations as to why that might be in just a second. But I think it's serving a purpose. I think that even like when somebody says something that is true, even if they say it with evil intent, it doesn't make what they said not true, and it doesn't. So
you're saying he said the things with evil intent?
No, I'm saying even if they said it with evil intent. In other words, I don't know. I don't know. I kind of, where I feel like I'm settling is Harry was doing evil work, but I don't think that Harry was intending to be evil. Maybe. But I'm leaning on the side that I don't think he was intending to be evil. But you can be doing work that is not good.
Yeah, but saying that, okay, maybe you should help one person, is that him doing something wrong?
Okay, what about like somebody who feels like they've changed their life and they've turned over a leaf and now they're saved? You telling them basically that all you were worth was given away when you were being a hoe. And so why not just be a hoe, because you ain't got no value left anyway. And, like that's mean. Even if it was true, it's mean.
All right.
So like,
but everybody's not 100% perfect. So maybe sometimes he say wrong. That don't mean when he's saying something some other time, he's being nefarious.
No, and I don't think it's all the time. And I do think that Harry was dropping gems in this movie, which is what makes it so
I think the question was, is the gem bad or not? Right? I think that he was trying to do good. I think all his gems
were good. All of his gems were good. But the question is, did it have a positive outcome? Is it going to move people to the right direction, or what? And what is the purpose of it?
Right. And I think the purpose was good.
Okay. So let's talk about this idea that Harry's character represents a trickster archetype. And he's someone who thrives on disruption, challenging the balance between the past and the present. And let's get into the whole trickster, because I had to even go and do some research, because I was like, the trickster. I mean, in general, I understood what that meant, but I needed more context. On eternalizedofficial.com, they give some definitions that just help us all better understand what this trickster is when in writing, in films, in literature and stuff like that. So who is the trickster? The tricksters are the breakers of rules, agents of mischief, masters of deceit, boundary crossers, and they're always, quote unquote, on the road, and they are the lords of in between. And while we endeavor to trace the trickster to his origin, he continues to play his tricks on us, always evasive, always crossing our conceptual boundaries of definition in which we try to confine him. So perhaps here is the first lesson to be learned from the trickster. Whatever we do, he's always one step ahead of us. And the victims of people such as con men and snake oil salesmen are those who are unconscious of the trickster. They've been tricked by their own naivete, greed, or self-deception. And we have to be a little tricky to guard against being tricked. There can also be people who really believe that they are helping others, but are in fact tricking them. In this case, both the perpetrator and the victim are unconscious of the trickster. So this may be who Harry is, right? Harry is being a trickster, but he thinks he's doing good, but he is tricking them also. And in this case, the perpetrator and the victim are unconscious of the trickster. And I think maybe that's where Harry falls. But more on this trickster. So this is important because George Akerlof and Robert Shiller, they are both Nobel Prize winning economists, and they're known for their work on behavioral economics and the role of psychology in economic decision making. And they said every man has his weak spot, and so every one of us is oftentimes less than fully informed, and oftentimes we have difficulty knowing what we really want. As a byproduct of these human weaknesses, we can be tricked. And if people are less than perfect, those competitive free markets will not just be the playing field for providing us with what we need and want. They will also be the playing field for fishing for fools. So in other words, this is the playing field for how people wind up falling victim to con people, essentially, because they wrote this whole book about fishing with a PH, like, and the con of it all. And that's what they're pointing to. So we talked about Harry dropping gems. And one of the purposes of the trickster is to keep the other person's ego in check, right? And they inflict like this self-doubt in the film. And in the film, we see Harry is actually speaking the truth quite frequently. And this is what makes him him being the trickster so cunning. So he's telling the son, Junior, hey, you can't judge other people by, your actions, right? You can't judge what they're doing based on what you think should be done. He tells Junior's wife, you're doing it all wrong. Save one person. And he doesn't exactly say this, but he implies that, you think you're great because you think you're doing a good thing. But here's the real deal. He tells Hattie stuff. He's telling all of these people things that are technically probably true. And he could, so what do you think of that? The idea of the trickster.
What does the trickster get out of it? I just don't think that's him.
Okay,
right?
So you disagree that he's the trickster.
Yeah.
I'm making the case that he's the trickster.
Yeah, so what does he get out of it?
What does he get out of it? I think, okay, what the trickster gets out of it is whatever he wants. He's able to trick people into doing whatever he wants them to do. That's number one, which means back to the idea of controlling your environment, of getting things your way. Yeah. The trickster is setting up manipulations for that to happen. So
Harry, what did he get out of it?
Harry was about to be, if things had worked out, okay, let's say he's the trickster. Let's say he set things up and was trying to hurt Gideon. Then Harry could have been about to move in as the husband and get control of the house, control of the money. There's a motive that could be there for somebody who wants to take advantage, because we saw somebody who was transparent about his motive, right? Harry's lodge brother came in and said, look, I'm in line first.
Yeah, we saw somebody who was trying to do something, but Harry didn't, right? We can say, oh, he was trying to get the inheritance or something, right? Or get insurance money, but nothing in the film shows me that, right? The actions of some other character isn't bestowed upon another.
Well,
right, because this other guy came and I'm next in line. That doesn't mean that's why Harry is doing what he's doing.
Well, the trickster doesn't always have to be consciously aware of their trickery.
Yeah,
I guess, yeah. I mean, maybe it works with him that, and and hey, this is just a speculation. This is could be one person's idea and opinion.
Right? That was so. I think that all of the characters were doing things to get stuff to go their way. And we seen what they wanted, right? But with Harry, all I know is this guy showed up, right? And then I see what everybody around him is trying to get.
It's tough. I mean, but I think that's the point of the movie. Part of the point is that we're not getting, we don't have the full information of every single situation. We don't know the full motives of people. We only see what they actually do. We're not in their head. And we don't see anybody actually do a wrong thing to anybody else. Even when Babe Brother hits his wife, it appears accidental because of what's happening and things haven't been escalated.
Yeah.
Not that he deliberately planned to sock her and black her eye.
Yeah. So we got the character who is basically, he shunned his whole family. He don't take care of his kid. He hit his wife and everything. And we're looking at Harry and trying to see how he is bad.
People like sugar better than they like bitter, and Harry is bitter, right? Harry said the medicine at work is gonna leave a bitter taste or whatever, something to that effect. And Harry is bitter. People like things that are sweet. This is people like things that taste good and are palatable. This is why they're susceptible to politicians and other people who present well. This is why beautiful people tend to go further when it comes to being salespeople, right? With the pitch, because people like the experience of interacting with them. And if you don't like the person, then it's much easier to believe bad things about them. I mean, that's just kind of how I see that. Know someone who's obsessed with movies? Surprise them with the ultimate gift, a personalized 30-minute Axiom Amnesia deep dive on demand on their favorite film. For just $50, they'll get exclusive insights and see their name as executive producer. Get yours today at axiom.app. But let's talk about Harry's death and maybe the symbolism of these marbles, right? So if you take a look at some of these idioms involving marbles, like your marbles, like meaning your mental health or your ability to think and remember clearly, right? And like if you say somebody lost their marbles, like they went crazy, they lost their mental health and ability to think clearly, right? If you think about the saying, for all the marbles, right? Which means for total victory or the entirety of a prize or award, these things are typically said when you're on the verge of victory, right? And the family had really lost all of their marbles, both literally and figuratively, right? They lost the marbles. The little boy lost the marbles when his mama kicked the marbles on the floor when she was walking to the door. And then the family prior to that had really lost their minds. They couldn't see clearly what was happening. They couldn't see clearly the root of the problems. They had anger. They had resentment, all of these things, but they were gaining clarity. So I feel like there's a good case for the marbles being.
Yeah, but then just generally, right? So the problems of all the family is much easier to put it on a devil or a person, right, who came into your life instead of looking at the role that all of you played in it.
And the way that it presents in the movie, it's like Harry almost had them under this spell with his manipulations, which I know you don't think are manipulations, but maybe they were, maybe they weren't, whatever. But that could be one way to look at it. And as soon as they took back their mental health, like they took their marbles back and could think clearly and, could see the issues, those same marbles, their clear thinking, right, led to Harry's end at the hands of the child. Who wrote this and did all of this weaving in and out? Like, that's interesting to me, just the whole marble angle. Another thing that we should point out too, and we touched on it a little bit, is just the new ways, the new generation versus the old ways. And the film really does explore this tension that's happening where you got the new generation, they want to do new things and drive fancy cars, and the old generation wants to use herbal remedies and, keep things the way that they were. And they find nostalgia in remembering the people and the times as they were before they changed, And I think that the film does a really good job of depicting that in these struggles between generations.
I don't know, but I think for the most part, like, you try to leave where you come from too, right? That's the whole thing of migrating, right? There's something about that I think is better somewhere else, right? And of course, the future, right?
Right.
Good times are coming, right? These bad times won't last forever.
Yes.
Right. And you leave from there. I'm going over here, get a better point of life. And we got a bunch of people who really mentioned about the past, right? And what Harry used to be, what Hattie used to be, harried. He don't look at the past supposedly, and all of those things, right? And how the brothers grew up and how they were treated growing up versus now, and whether or not the boy playing a trumpet would get any better or not, right? And yeah, so we got all those situations, and basically how over time Gideon didn't get any better though.
Gideon was like what we would call a static character. He remained the same. He's still telling the crude jokes and the wild jokes he was telling at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
And
everybody
he
else
spent half
changed.
the
He was
movie-
sleep.
Yeah,
right? You sleep.
He spent half the movie sleep too. But also on that level, religion and folklore and superstition, I think it's related too, because the older generation had more of a hold to their religion and folklore and superstition that the younger generation didn't really have. The younger people didn't seem to be as much into carrying luck charms and the other things that were part of the culture from back home that didn't really translate to LA, right? You have this generation of people who still do what they did back home in LA, but their children now are of LA, and are living like folks there. And do you think that like the idea of folklore and superstition in the movie like makes the story more powerful? Because I think it makes it where the story is
because
more ambiguous, which makes it more powerful.
We can't just be like, oh, this guy came around and he tried to kill Gideon, right? It's just one of those. It would be one of those typical stories.
Well, and it leaves open the idea of supernatural influences on this, right? Because if you're watching the movie and you don't believe in supernatural
or
in any way or any metaphysical
right?
type of stuff, then you're like, hey, he didn't do anything. There's no way that anything he did could have been making somebody be, sick or anything like that, right? This guy's just maybe a butthole in your mind. But it's not supernatural. Whereas if you believe in the supernatural and, omens and all of this stuff, then that presents a different reality for what's really going on in this movie. And so, yeah, I think it enhances the film. And I also think that characterizing people who are from the South as people who believe in like junk science and not even junk science, in mojos and stuff, like as an insult, right? You're believing in this stuff, and it just seems to be this stereotype, right? You could, especially if they were from Louisiana, which I don't think they were, but then you get that same type of thing where, if you're from there, then it means this, and this is what they,
Yeah.
And so there is a bit of a trope, I feel, that is related to that. So let us, as we always do when we hear these biblical names, talk about Samuel and Gideon from the Bible for just a second. And I got this information from Bible Project. And so we see the character in the Bible, Gideon, in Judges. And he essentially is this coward of a man, but he comes to trust God and that he can save Israel through him. And so he defeats this huge army with only 300 men carrying nothing but torches and clay pots in the story. And so Gideon, though, also has a nasty temper. However, and he murders several of his fellow Israelites for not helping him in battle. And to make things worse, he also makes this idol from gold that he won in a battle. And then after he dies, all of Israel worships it as a god. And the cycle just begins once again, because the whole reason Israel was having trouble to begin with at that point in the Old Testament is because they were, worshiping idols and just being wild and not following the commandments that God had given them. The other glimmer of hope, though, in this story is the last sentence of book, which says Israel has no king. And so the stage is actually set for the following books of the Bible to talk about the origins of the family of King David, as well as the origins of kingship in itself in Israel, which takes place in the book of Samuel, right? And so the life of Samuel from the Bible was pivotal in Israel's history because he was a prophet and he was anointed. He anointed the first two kings of Israel, both Saul and David, right? And he was the last in the line of Israel's judges, who were like the figures prior to kings that they judged, right? And were leaders. And so they were considered, and he was considered, Samuel was by many to be the greatest judge. And So if we look at Gideon from the movie, he had mishandled his relationship with his youngest son, and that also led to or inflamed some of the resentments that babe brother, aka Samuel, had toward him. And him waking up maybe gave him a chance to do a do-over to get things right, because, you know, that could be a parallel there. But in the end, we see, just like you just pointed out, that Gideon didn't learn anything. He just still stayed the same.
Yeah, but so that means that the brothers didn't need him, right? They kind of started working on it on their own.
Could be. And just like Gideon in the Bible, though, he made matters worse. And after his death, people went back to doing the same things. They were worshiping idols in the Bible. And if this second chance hadn't happened, then they still would have been fighting. You know what I'm saying? The brothers would have been fighting. Things would have been matters would have been made worse. And then the other thought is that perhaps babe brother, his decision to take on the name Samuel, to say, hey, don't stop calling me babe brother. My name is Samuel. To take that name on means that, and his family calling him this shows a transition of him into a leader, right? Because, you know, Samuel was the last of the judges, and he was also, you know, just considered to be a good man and a great leader, just like the Samuel of the Bible, right? Well, in this movie, maybe this is his opportunity to become more Samuel-like. That's just, you know, a thought. But we want to thank the executive producer of this video, Anton Colvin, who we appreciate for, you know, getting this deep dive on demand. And if you made it this far,
go ahead and type Chivamp in the comments so we'll know you're one of the real ones who stick around.
Is Chivamp one word?
I don't know.
Go ahead and visit axiom.app so that you can see all of our latest videos in one place that will link back to YouTube where you can watch them. And also be sure to check out the video that's on the screen right now.